hola, my beautiful audience, and welcome to another episode of Elevative Shots. Another shot, and after a quick break where I enjoyed time with family and friends, it's good to be back. And as every episode, this is very special because we might change this, but we're gonna because of her fun fact. But this one is all about change, and it is my pleasure to welcome to today's episode to Kellie Ayres. She is the founder of Kellie Ayres Advisory, which is a little bit her latest adventure. And how are you, Kellie? And welcome to Elevative Shot.
Thanks, Mariana. It's so great to be here. I'm great, thank you. It's a beautiful spring morning in Canberra. Trying to have the right colours on for spring, so bring a bit of vibrancy to this podcast today. So I'm very excited to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
It's going to be a fantastic conversation, I'm pretty sure. Let me tell you a little bit about Kellie before we dive into the change questions. Kellie is a solo parent to her 11-year-old son that you can all see in his beautiful picture in the background. Kellie is certified in meditation and yoga, which I didn't know. We have to talk about this, but also in organizational change and transformation. She has a passion for turning big, messy challenges into clear, people at core focused solutions. Kellie has a career spanning senior roles across government, enterprise, and consultancy. She also has a reputation for blending strategy with lived experience. Fun fact about Kellie is that as a specialist in the change field, she quite dislikes using the word change as it can be an overused adjective and an understated role title. Using clarity and adaptability are more suited to a journey of transformation. This is not part of what I was planning, but I think it's we need to ask you how do you come up with this and a little bit of your reflection. I really like clarity and adaptability, but tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. I think we've moved from not really recognizing change as a specialized skill in the past to it now being spoken about so often. Organizations are certainly picking up on the trend of change management, which is great. And it's great for people like ourselves, Mariana, who are skilled in this area and really take a passion in the work that we do and the service that we offer around change management. I think the word change is becoming overused, and I think it is a reflection of what it actually is. So I like to think that when we're embarking on something that is transformational, or it's a journey, or it's an adventure, it's usually with people, and there's usually some kind of impact at some point. And I think using the words for what it is as an perhaps as an emotion, or how it feels behaviorally, would actually be a better terminology. And I'm not trying to create some kind of phenomenon or anything. It's just a belief that I have. And I think that I just try and weave it into the work that I do and the clients that I deal with, looking at adaptability and clarity rather than we are trying to change you or change a system or operationally change something. Don't necessarily look, we know we need to get to an end goal at some point, and we know what that outcome, we're usually driving towards that outcome. But because you're bringing people along, there's emotion, there's behaviors, there's feeling, right? So
Hmm.
I think choosing the right terminology, we talk about communication in change management very a lot as well, and I think that's clarity, right? And then along the journey, you also want people to adapt to that change, or to the journey, and come along on that with you. They're actually your richest source. The people that you're moving with and changing with and transforming with, they're your richest source of advocacy and championing, right, around change
Yep.
in any kind of upgrade. So I like to just use words that is more about feeling, it's more about culture than what it is as a service. So I guess it's a bit more personalized.
Yep. Yeah. And hey, because we consciously or unconsciously connect change with the resistance many times, right? Or the
Right?
fear of, oh, now we have to change and what that means for me. So I
Right.
think it's a perfect segue into our first question because I'm really, really keen to see, understand your perspective around what are the most common mindsets or habits that hold leaders back from successfully leading change.
Mm.
Because we're talking about there's a lot of controlling here, right? So how can they
Yeah.
shift that controlling change to co-creating with their teams?
Yeah. No, and I think not embarking on the change at all in the first place is one of the common habits. I think the feeling of it's too disruptive, or it's too much of a challenge, or we don't have budget for that, because it kind of feels like we will constantly have organizations that, culture shifts. We modernize as well. We're moving into a place of AI. And since the pandemic, we've moved into a space of working from home, new ways of working, flexible working, remote working, digital working, working environments. So I think we we take on a bit of a stance of, well, let's just, we'll just make the changes, and then we will just make it'll just end up with people, and they'll just come along and they'll just adapt to it. But we don't necessarily invest in what I said earlier, the feeling and the emotion, the impact to people at the time of doing that. So I think not embarking on the change at all is absolutely a common mindset. I will leave that for next budget, or we'll leave that when we get a new role and you fill that vacancy, or we just won't do it at all and we'll just keep making the changes, but we won't take people along on the journey at the same time. We'll just dump it on people. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things, is to take the challenge, have the right skill around you, have, whether that be building internal capability. I think that's also a bit of a common mindset. Is, I mean, I'm all for. I've been a long-term Australian public servant in the Commonwealth, and I would have loved for that, the skill of change management, neuroscience, behavioural, human-centered design, all of those offerings, and that as a service, be offered on a platter for me as a public servant to upskill over my,
Mm,
over my career in the public service. But it felt like it was absolutely an independent journey that I was on, because it almost felt like change is going to happen. Policies and programs are going to be handed down from Parliament. We're going to have budget that sees certain outcome. It's just going to happen anyway. But if you don't do change right, and if you don't implement new things right, we all know that you lose people along on the way. And that is not just in retention, it's also in talent. It's also about organizational reputation, right? You want to be favored as a organization that's great to work for. You want to be known for a great culture, right? But you also want to be known that you're offering a great pathway for someone's career, right? And I think we've totally shifted. I know I've mentioned the pandemic and I hate to harp on it, but this has actually been a huge opportunity for people like us that are really passionate about this space, about heart, well-being, organizational change, culture uplift. So I feel like uh, it's put us in great stead. It's put us in great favor to say, we all talk about well-being and culture now. It's time to invest. So that's probably a big habit, is that we're not doing that. But
mhm,
I'll flip that a little bit as well. I'm going to talk about more internally now, rather than a holistic kind of system before we even get to the change. When you're in the changing, you've made that investment, you have the budget, you have the right skill, the right people that are going to be on this transformation journey and get to a state of success and have an end goal.
mhm,
An engaged and active change sponsor,
mm,
usually an organizational executive or a senior leader, is integral to any change program.
yep,
Seeing someone internal, especially of a senior, in a senior capacity, walk the walk and talk the talk and be on the side of change, is so uplifting.
mm,
And I can say this from lived experience, because I have had a lot of change done to me. And isn't that funny? I say done to me, not with me. So that's another, I
Yep.
think we'll cover that further in the session, but that's another thing is having someone that is championing the program of change is super important because that's usually someone that's already trusted,
Mm,
is of a higher ranking, um, is a spokesperson, and to see someone on that journey of a change program or some sort of systematic or operational change is super key. And I really do feel that one of the biggest common habits, and I've kind of spoken holistically, I've then now talked internally. I think one of the common habits is we forget that change is an emotional experience, and neuroscience plays a really big part in resistance and adaptability. We actually, as human beings, we do resist. We
mm.
don't want to change. We are creatures of habit. However, the brain is a very, very interesting thing, and neuroscience plays a really big part, is that we can actually be rewired. And I think that's really important too, is when I made the point around don't just not embark on the change because you feel it's too complex or too disruptive. If you come into this with feeling, with emotion, knowing it's going to impact people, and you do it right, you have stage gates, you check in with people, you honestly have an outlet or a platform to engage with stakeholders throughout it, right? So I think that plays a big part around rewiring the brain to say, look, I'm a little bit fearful of this change. However, we've got a really big change team. They're listening to us. They're actually taking our advice. They're taking our ideas as well. They're also listening to our past experience when it comes to change and when it wasn't done well. And they're going to learn from that, and they're actually going to bring that into this new change. So I feel like that is a really big component. And I'm reading an amazing book at the moment, Mariana, around neuroscience and change in the workplace. And it's no unknown to me. It was just I've been doing a lot of research around the brain and the heart and the emotion around changing. Because we as personally, when anything is disruptive in our own lives, we have feeling and emotion, right? Well, that's the same feeling when you're in an organization, you're in a business. So researching that and having you think about that and how we bring that in as a change manager or as a change lead into a project, I think is really, really important.
So what's
So
what's the book?
I think I'll leave it there. Sorry.
What's the book?
Oh, it
What's the name?
is Neuroscience for Change at Work, and it's by Tibisay Vera and Melanie Franklin. And I
Okay.
can send this to you. And it's just something, as I said, I've just recently been doing some research on, and it just talks about because we do as change managers talk about the feeling and the emotion. And this just talks about more so around how the brain reacts,
Yep.
why it reacts the way that it does, and how we should put into our change frameworks particular stage gates for checking in and bringing people on the journey, ensuring that they are less resistant to the change and they're adapting more.
Yeah. I think I always in part of what I deliver in my trainings is and as part of having that diagnosis of what's the change readiness here is to understand
Yeah,
where is the resistance coming from. Because when we have self-awareness, at least we know and we can do something about it. So we can, as
right.
part of the risk assessment, to anticipate what could happen, what are the behaviors that we're expecting potentially from groups of employees or specific employees. So I think
Yeah,
it's so fundamental to understand, and I love that you use the heart because it's sometimes quite daunting to talk about heart in the workplace, but it's so powerful because everything comes from the heart first.
right.
Um, you talked a lot about embracing the messiness of change. So I'm keen to see you also talked about the how to build sustainable change capability. So what is one thing that leaders can do to start this, right? Embracing the messiness of change, and what is one thing that they should stop doing?
I think looking the investment of change capability, whether that be internally, I mentioned this before, in upskilling staff or contracting specialists or a mix of both,
Yep.
I think actually recognizing that change is actually a specialized skill, and it does have components of human resource in there. It does have components of, you know, AI and all the new digital and modernized world. And it's actually behavior that we see often that everyone should just accept it. Well, we're going to change this and we're going to move into this new system, or we're going to operate a different way now. We're going to give you new wireless keyboards and mice, and we're just going to dump it on your desk and then we'll just see how you go with it. It's surprises that people don't like. If you just communicate it and say this is what we're doing and bring people along on the journey, I think that's where the messiness kind of comes into it. It's like, communication engagement is a huge factor of and part of change management. And I feel like sometimes when we talk about change, or we go into, say, a client organization, and we from the outset have a look at a program or a project that organizations are looking for us to assist on. It is those simple things, because we get into our day-to-day mindset, right? We have a job description, we have a role that we play every day, and we come in the morning and we go home at night. And for some people they're longer hours, but that it's almost quite robotic, right? Because we haven't, and especially in large organizations where there's quite significant seeing a hierarchy, and also in the public service where it's you are on you're on the clock, and you are expected to deliver a lot, and sometimes that comes at the detriment of your own personal life and your own feeling and emotion. You just push to achieve and get to that end goal. So I think the the looking at the I've lost my train of thought. Sorry,
What?
Mariana.
No, that's all good. I think that's the messiness. I think that's a good example of the
A good
messiness
example of the
of
business. See, this is
many,
what I do.
and embracing that messiness. It's I guess what we experiencing right now.
Yeah, no, that's true. And this is the other thing I do. I come in with such heart and with such passion around what it is that what I have identified, and then I give it all, and then I go, oh, that's right, we're here to actually do this part of the job. So where I was going with around the engagement, and strong engagement, strong communications is key to clean up the messiness. And I should say this is not the enemy. So
No,
it's actually, I like to say, it's the compost where new ideas grow, right? It actually is, because
100%.
it's lived experience. It's lessons learned. We all know about that in business. You can move through a in any in any role, in anything that you're delivering, even just in your day to day, that messiness, the things where you feel like, oh, we didn't do that quite well, or I didn't do that independently well, or my team didn't. You learn from that, you grow from that. I feel like messy is not the enemy. It's the compost where new ideas grow. It needs to go on my website.
There you go. Yes, and this is how I think it's I want everyone to live, because we tend to, see the negative side of things, of messiness, and at the end of the day, as a compost, as you say, where ideas grow. I think we talked about the neuroscience behind when we are in this messy state of mind, is where imagination gets boost,
Yeah,
creativity, curiosity. You're allowing your brain to simply wonder, right? Which is something that we
yeah,
don't do a lot nowadays, given that,
yeah.
we get distracted
We
easily.
we do. I think we need to stop treating change as a one-off event. Change is always going to be there. It happens in our personal lives, as we know. We get distractions, and we have little things that pop up that are totally unexpected. That's how you should also operate in the workplace. And even though we are an organization that does business planning, and we have a look at all the steps of the way, and when budgets are being handed down, and what we're going to do with that budget, where we're going to invest. I think looking at change as though it's just a one-off event, and we have a finish line and that's it, and it cuts off, and then we start the next one. It should be forever revolving. It's a revolving door. You keep the conversations going, you keep the engagement going, really healthy communication as well, I think is really key. And I also think, yeah, the point around not seeing a finish line, that because that's not success. The success is not about timelines and that you've delivered on this particular, I mentioned before around keep those micro wins going, celebrate them as well. Changes should forever be sustainable as with a zero finish line. And I think with that, it ends up being a practice that is just ingrained within an organization and across your employees. And it's part of culture, right? So it's almost like you're building a muscle up, that then doesn't, it becomes less reactive that way too. Change shouldn't be a skill set that you bring in and then remove it when that project or your delivery is successful or not, because we know that sometimes that's impossible to be fully successful,
Yep.
depending on competing priorities and business strategy and planning and other impacts. But I think continuing on, it's like going to the gym and building
Yep.
up the muscles, building up the routine, keeping that as a forever skill and capability ticking along. Don't bring people in as change managers or a role in as a change manager and then remove it when it's over. It should be always, it should maintain consistency.
Yeah, I think it's I always think of this as something that you build for your personal um life, and then you bring it to the professional, right? So it's if you see this
Yes.
as yeah, as a muscle that you exercise all the time, how you nurture your brain around change, because as you said,
Yes.
this is constant. How is that we start seeing change? How good would be if we start seeing change as a positive thing? In fact, that
Yeah.
we crave
That
for
we
change because the brain craves for simplicity. And
Yeah.
how is that we say we proactively seek for change, knowing that, as you said before, the messiness around it is a compost for innovative ideas. So,
Absolutely. And some may think that I planned the little pause about where I lost my train of thought to actually give a better example of messiness. I'll just let everyone think that.
well, Kelly, this has been fantastic. I think there's a lot of food for thought for everyone, hopefully watching this. Kelly, like me, we enjoy coffee, catch-ups, connections, and we both are really, really passionate about the human connection before anything else. So, if anyone watching this is interested in, getting in contact with Kelly, I will leave the details, but reach out if you want to have a conversation. We are here to listen to understand what's going on
Absolutely.
in
Yeah.
everyone's lives. But in the meantime, I'm really grateful for your time, Kelly. I think that's a lot to process there, which is fantastic. Any final thought that you want to give us before we farewell?
My final thoughts are, firstly, to thank you, Mariana. I'm really honoured to be here today, and I'm so grateful that you invited me along to be able to speak about this because I could speak about this for a very long time. And that's where, if you want a coffee catch up to talk about more of this,
Exactly.
absolutely. Like I would talk about these kinds of things for a long time because it comes with Marianne introduced me around my lived experience and what has led me on my journey to where I am today. And that's important to me. And I want to share that with others. And I want them to feel like there is actual authenticity in a service like change management. That's another big thing I've been researching lately is around the authenticity around us showing up as our whole selves,
Yep.
not only in business, but personally, showing the kindness and the calmness that comes with this crazy, sometimes crazy world. Um, that's refreshing. That's a part that I really am looking to research a little bit more is it's safe to be authentic in work and also in personal life. I think we do it a lot in personal life because I think it's always a bit of the unknown, but in business as well. Absolutely showing up as your whole self. And please send me questions or information or something that you would like me to to research or I'll have a chat with you on, I'd be more than willing to have a further conversation about it. But thank you once
Thank
again.
you. Well, thank you everyone. We are here if you need us. All of the resources are available. We hope to see you in the next episode. For the time being, I say Yerabi, which means goodbye from the Ngunnawal language in our Ngunnawal land here in Canberra. Thank you, Kelly, and thank you all. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.